When doing some research on the Sam Kerr controversy, I came upon this academic, which I've mentioned previously, Mario Peucker, or Peucker, I don't really know, who is an associate professor at Victoria University and is an expert in racism, among other things. It appears that his research interests lie primarily in right-wing extremism, while he seemingly isn't interested in left-wing extremism. I'm not sure why. In this SBS article from last year, which essentially concludes that white people can't experience racism because they hold too much power, a specious argument if you ask me, Professor Peucker states, race was invented in order to put black people, during the slave trade and colonisation, at the bottom of a hierarchy in order to justify exploitation. I take issue with him saying race was invented. That would indicate that it did not exist prior, which I think is absurd. I know what his argument is. Traditional racial categories do not have a biological basis. Modern genetics has shown that there is more genetic variation within so-called racial groups than between them. I get that, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, nor does it mean it was invented. People don't have X-ray eyes where they can see genetic variation. What we can see, though, is observable physical differences. Nobody is going to mistake Professor Peucker, a Caucasian male, for a Senegalese man. It's just not going to happen. There is enough physical difference that even an innocent child will see the good professor as being different from a person of African origin. And I'm not talking cultural differences, I'm just talking about physical appearance. Some woke people might say, I don't see race. Everyone is part of the human race. Liars. They do see race. Actually, I would say woke people see race more than everybody else. That's all they talk about, along with sexuality and gender. When Europeans first sailed to Australia, what do you think Aboriginal people thought? Did they think, oh, there's just some more people? No, they thought, oh my gosh, there's some white men. I think they might be spirits. Did they need race to be invented before they could distinguish Europeans from themselves? No. Using their eyes, they saw observable differences they had never seen before. Perhaps people don't like the idea of race and say it has no biological basis, but it's a real, observable thing, and every culture has treated people of different appearances differently. It's a natural human reaction. The ABC published a piece a couple of months ago. Race Discrimination Commissioner releases plan to end racism in 10 years. I can tell you now, it ain't gonna happen. As long as disparate cultures have observable physical differences, racism will continue to exist. Just as tall people are treated differently, or beautiful people are treated differently, or obese people are treated differently, humans naturally discriminate, as in perceive or constitute the difference in or between. It's what made us so successful as a species, knowing what's dangerous and what's not. Now, I'm not saying I agree with racism in the modern world, of course not, but I'm not foolish enough to believe that racism won't exist after a predetermined period of time, as set out by the starry-eyed Race Discrimination Commissioner. I would suggest it would take generations of indoctrination to convince all humans that all other humans are equal to them, a very unrealistic outcome. Of course, in the article they mention colonisation and white privilege. The report states, there can be no racial justice in this country without racial justice for First Nations peoples. Truth-telling of historical and ongoing injustices against First Nations peoples is essential. Australian parliamentarians and their staff should be required to complete regular anti-racism training that addresses workplace behaviour and prevents racism in all public communications. I'm sure they'll love that. Here's one such anti-racism training organisation called HUE. HUE is a social justice organisation run by two women of colour, Elsa Chewett-Rosenberg and Sonia Soffit. As long as they continue to refer to themselves as women of colour, do they honestly believe racism will disappear? Remembering Elsa Chewett-Rosenberg was the one that shared a post calling for people to set fire to buildings and to destroy colonial monuments on Australia Day. Nice lady. Back to the ABC article, our systems are built to maintain white privilege, and those who are white can successfully navigate, access, and lead systems and institutions without having to shed their language, culture, religion, and other parts of themselves. I can tell you now, as long as they keep talking like that, bashing white people, it will be impossible for them to solve racism. Race was invented? Are they having a laugh?